A headliner says yes to Florida State University, and that would be in the form of an On3 top 50 prospect in the 2026 class. His name is Ernest Rankins, and you're about to learn more about him as Michael Langston, senior recruiting analyst for Warchant.com, is going to fill us in. Michael, Florida State now has somebody new that sits atop of their 2026 class rankings at the time of this commitment. Humongous get for FSU in the defensive line.
Yeah, major defensive line commit, Ernest Ranking, guy that officially visited in the summer in June. This was kind of the one position that I felt like was the most important and most vital. They had the rally, to pull this off. Really, I would say the last 48 hours. That's when really you felt like, hey, this could really happen. We had heard for a couple weeks that the official visit he took was very lasting impact as far as the connection and what Knighton's done and what Knighton plans to do as far as his defensive line, because it's kind of different than I guess your traditional guy that coach that does it. He likes to move around the guys and in different spots. You add him now with Tico Crittenden, who they got earlier, also from the state of Georgia, and I think they did an incredible job rallying to really get this done, to get a top tier guy where Auburn was really the longtime favorite. I think like I feel like we say that a lot as far as Auburn's not going to be inviting him over for dinner anytime soon, but um, I started to get a feel probably I would say around Sunday or Monday. Started just communicating with different people from the Auburn side, and they felt like this was probably not going their way. I think they even tried to have him delay the announcement maybe to give them more time to get in there. But I think FSU had seized the momentum probably over the weekend and maybe even to earlier last week. So, to get a guy like this that you can move inside and outside, that's a massive get for this team that desperately need some high school defensive linemen, as far as in their influx into their program. We know they did a lot as far as getting guys that fit from the transfer portal, but this is significant for FSU and FSU recruiting because you're coming off a 2-10 season, and this guy Terrence Knighton has already found a way in the summer to add real two big pieces that are really going to change your team overall, and it changes my perception of just how I can view defensive line recruiting because now it shows that they can get anybody if they lay out the plan and they lay out and it connects with the recruit. I think it shows that they definitely can get it done. Like I said, Auburn was the long leader. Georgia was up there high for a while. Texas was also another team. I mean, I just mentioned three teams that are power teams that certainly do that. So this is probably, I would say, Tom, one of my favorite pickups that they have for the year because of the necessity of the need inside the program at defensive line.
Well, once again, you're talking about programs that aren't afraid to invest heavily, Michael, in order to make their recruiting classes go, to get into that top 10, to get into that top 5. So it means that Florida State was aggressive here and made a good pitch from the NIL perspective. I know that when he was on campus, he had the interview. I think he was there early last month, early in June. And he was kind of, there was almost, oh, by the way, energy to his visit. But then by the time he left, the interview on the way out, it seemed like there was a pulse. It didn't feel like there was a pulse on the way in, but on the way out, I remember you took note of this. Just tell me through, take me through that, where this was a kid that, of course, he was going to spend time in Tallahassee, but you didn't envision that a month later, first week of July, he was going to be committing publicly to Florida State over these other contenders.
Yeah, you didn't. You still felt like the thing that was eyebrow raising for me was when he said it was an eye-opening visit, and just his body language he gave off was like dramatically different than what we saw when he first got there. It was kind of like, "Hey, I'm here, gonna have fun, see how it goes," but it was more business afterwards, and I think the visit really stunned him, and then I think it was stunning to him too the way he connected with Coach Knighton and Coach White, for that matter, on this official visit, and it really shocked him. And I don't think that feeling for FSU ever left him from that visit. I think they set the bar from that point. Sure, there's going to be other official visits that he's going to take to Auburn and other places, but it didn't meet what this one met. It was more personal. You could see the personal connection with the school he saw the kind of layout of the plan of, the way they utilize their schemes and the way they utilize their defensive linemen, that he could be inside, he could be outside, he could be. They're not afraid to play guys early. Certainly, an early impact is very attainable. So I think he saw all these things, and just his comfort around the players was definitely there. You could feel that in the interview as something that we didn't feel when he got there for the opening visit, even though it was a grand welcoming and all that stuff. That stuff is kind of the set the tone, but you saw a different body language and a different feel, following that official visit. But even then, I think we all, even myself, I thought it's like, yeah, Auburn's still going to be hard to beat because he visits them later. You're going to have to hold on with that. Can they sustain that feeling? And that's the one thing I can say throughout a lot of these recruitments and a lot of this big June that they had, was they did a really good job of getting stuff that's going to stick for, all the way, a few months or a few weeks, and not just like, hey, flash of the plan, this is fun, this is exciting, I like it, but then lose that kind of juice or momentum. And they just never lost that with a lot of, if you look back at all these June official visits, it's very consistent of kind of what they've done to finish it off with what I consider the best pickup for me. When I look at it, there's a lot of great pickups, but to me, this is the biggest because you're pairing them with Crediting now, two really good four-star defensive linemen that are really high that they coveted a lot, and they went after their top guys and they got them.
Yeah, again, if you look at the On3 rankings, just On3's own ranking, this is the number 47 player overall in the class, a top 5 defensive lineman. He's 5th. If you look at the On3 industry, which takes everything into account, I wonder how that Rivals ranking is going to get dropped off and integrated with all
Yeah.
the merging that's going on. But he's 113th in the country. So either way you look at it, he is Florida State's top commitment at this time. I'm going to ask Michael about a guy who would take that crown away from
Yeah.
Ernest Rankins in just a second. But a reminder, if you're a student out there making your way up to campus, summer session A, B, or C, I don't know what's going on campus right now, but if you're making your way to Tallahassee and you want the best Florida State coverage in the business, you got to head over to warchant.com, take a peek around, and then open up your email account and email us at support@warchant.com from your fsu.edu account that you were assigned when you got on campus in Tallahassee. And guess what? You're going to get a free subscription to warchant.com. It's a $120 value. Yours absolutely free. No credit card required. All you got to do is follow the instructions on the screen or do as I said verbally if you're listening to this maybe you're driving around in your car. Email support@warchant.com from your FSU account, and we're going to hook you up. All right, Michael. So there's another player out there. He's a cornerback, a highly sought-after cornerback that could take the mantle as Florida State's number 1 recruit in the 2026 class. His name's Chauncey Cannon, and the vibes have been good around Florida State for a long period of time. That's not getting stale, is it? It's just that his decision day is coming, and do you still feel good about him perhaps saying yes to Florida State?
Yeah, he's had that July 6th date for a while. I think he's just stuck with it. I think a lot of people are surprised that he didn't jump right in, right after FSU official. He was originally going to take a visit to LSU. That never happened. I think everything I feel very good about, still feel very good about that RPM pick that I have, for Florida State. I think Surtain and Tony White. I think that's an underscoring guy as far as in this recruitment of, yeah, you can be sold on, Surtain and what he does development wise, but you got to be sold on just the system. And I think for a guy like Chauncey, and then them already having a guy from Sarasota and Charles Lester there, I think that certainly helps. I think his sister's actually going there too, to FSU. So that certainly, there's a lot of pluses in there. But they did a really good job of, I think, just outworked everyone and laid out a plan better than anybody else that was just so solid. I mean, you have Georgia and you have Florida in there, and there's certainly other teams in there. But I think for Chauncey, they've done the best job from what I've seen. So yeah, that would be another massive one because you're talking about a guy that, if you look at the rankings, some outlets have him as a 5-star. And I think On3, maybe I don't know the Rivals one, but I know On3 has him as a high 4-star. So certainly that's going to be one that moves the needle for you in this class. And like I said, I wasn't counting on Rankins probably 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago. So if you can add both of those guys, I think it dramatically. I mean, I think the FSU staff would be elated going into the upcoming season with that game against Alabama. So I think overall, but for today, certainly getting Ernest Rankins is a massive get, because that wasn't one that I think probably 2 or 3 weeks ago we were expecting that could happen. I think a lot of people were surprised that they were able to pull this off, and it seems like a common thing I'm saying a lot of these videos, that they're rallying really good as far as a lot of these recruitments. We saw that, certainly when they had to flip Devin Carter, had to get Jason Lopez, who looked like that was going to be Miami. FSU rallied. So they've done a lot of that, and I think a lot of that's just their illustration of their plan for each one of these kids. It doesn't have to be football related, but the personal plan of how they connect and how they will fit into the program. I think they are doing the best job at that so far.
Well, you go back to all the way to December, the early signing period, when they made sure that pitches were made, aggressive pitches, NIL-wise. They were able to get some big flips. Since that point, coming off of a 2-10 season, I'm not going to use the word miraculous because, I mean, look, it's Florida State. It's a strong brand. But coming off a 2-10, this is incredibly strong work by Florida State to get as many yeses as they have. We'll take a look, and we'll update you on our social media pages about where this puts Florida State in terms of the recruiting class. But if you get a top 50 player in On3's groupings like Rankins, Chauncey Kennan is an industry top 50 player. Florida State is moving in the right direction. For the latest from Michael, everything that's going on at warchant.com and the Premium Recruiting Board, head over to warchant.com for more of those nuggets of what's coming up. You got the July 6th date for Chauncey Kennan. A lot more decisions coming this month as well. Michael, always appreciate the insight. And again, I think we'll be doing a video pretty soon, one more time or twice, probably in the next week. It seems to be we're getting together pretty often these days.
I hope so, because it's all good for FSU when we do these things. It's a lot of positive momentum, probably certainly the most I've seen in a long time under the Norvell era. So definitely stay tuned to Warchant. We'll certainly have a lot more nuggets, a lot more follow-ups, a lot more different features coming up. I think I have a receiver feature that's coming up of their big haul they've made there, which I think is one of the best that I've seen in a while that they've gotten so far. So a lot going on, team stuff, fall practice coming up. So definitely hit the like button, and certainly follow Warchant. It's the best time to do it.
There it is. You hit the promo. We'll talk to you next time right here on Warchant TV.